Okay. Hello, everybody. Let's do the vocabulary review. Plummet, plummet. Stock tumble. Demise. 暴跌。坠落 tumble. 坠落跌倒。Demise. 消失死亡。Set a precedent. 作为先例说 precedent. Set a precedent. Set a precedent. 开创先例，对。Approach us. Pile on. Pile on 什么意思来着？忘了。堆积，对。Pile on. Keep on. Monstrous. 大量的。巨大而可怕的。Monstrous. Run something into the ground. Confidential. 秘密的。Confident. Respect. 是尊敬。Respective 是什么？自个儿的。Respective. Both men excel in their respective field. They partied and went their respective ways. Okay, China. Right, China joined the IMF World Bank in 1980s and immediately began to receive billions of dollars in loans. Although it was well known that she was devoting a huge portion of her resources to military development. Devoting a huge portion. Devote something to do something. They devoted all their thoughts to escape. A chapter devoted to devote something to somebody. Devote something to something. She devoted her life to her career, helping the poor. Devote oneself to something. A huge portion of her resources to military development. By 1984, China was the IMF's second largest borrower, next to India, and the transfusions have grown at steady pace ever since. Transfusion. Have a blood transfusion. Give somebody a blood transfusion. Transfusion. The bank has asserted The bank has asserted that loans will encourage economic reforms in favor of the private sector. Yet now the money has gone to the private sector. All of it's funneled into the government bureaucracy. 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 Which bureaucracy. Bureaucracy, which in turn wages war against the free market. In 1989, after small businesses and firms in the private sector had begun to flourish and surpass the performances of similar governments in the press, Chinese leaders cracked down on them with harsh controls and increased taxes. Had begun to flourish and surpass the performance of similar government enterprise. The Chinese leader clamped down on them with harsh controls and increased taxes. Began to flourish, 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 and surpass the performance of some similar government enterprise. The Chinese leader clamped down on them, clamped down on 加强管控 clamp down clamp down clamp down clap down on Vice Premier姚依林 announced that 姚依林王岐山的岳父 announced that there was too much needless construction, too many private loans, and too much spending on luxuries such as cars and banquets. Stop this excesses excess excesses stop these excesses He said it would be necessary to increase government controls over wages, prices, and business activities. Then there is the question of why China needs the money in the first place. Is it to stop? It is to develop her industrial or natural resources. Is it to fight poverty and improve the living standard of her citizens? Just forward says answers the bank's defense of its China's policies, especially puzzling because China itself is going on a foreign investment bingo. The World the World Bank gives China money at zero interest and then China buys properties in Hong Kong, the United States, Australia, and elsewhere. An, an economist with Citibank estimate 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 estimated made the estimated did did the estimated that China's direct investment in property, manufacturing, and services in Hong Kong alone topped 6 billion in 1984. China had a net outflow of capital of 1 billion. Moreover, China has its own foreign aid program, which has given more than 6 billion in recent decades, largely to leftist governments. Largely to 1980, 1980. The bank's defense of its China policy is especially puzzling. Defense of is a separate party because China itself is going on a bingo. Eating, drinking, or taking drugs, 疯狂的 foreign investment, 病止 is going on a binge. Is going on a binge. Is going on a binge. 正在疯狂的进行，正在大举进行，大举进行。The Great Deception, Great Deception, The Great Deception, Deception, The Great Deception. 骗术。It is author's contention that the much heralded heralded. The demise of communists in the Soviet bloc is a mixture of fact and fantasy. It is fact at the bottom level of communist society, where the people in truth rejected it long ago. The only reason they appeared to embrace it for so many years was that they had no choice as long as the Soviets held control of the weapons and the means of communication, the people had to accept their fate. But at the tip of the pyramid, pyramid, pyra- pyramid, pyramid, at the tip of the pyramid, pyramid, pyramid of state power, it is different story. The top communist leaders have never been as hostile to their counterparts in the West. Counterparts in the West, as rhetoric suggests, 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 hostile, hostile, and deception, deception, 欺骗 deception, sense, potential, recipient, hostile, rhetoric, 政治宣传 suggest, the empathy of rhetorical politicians. They are quite friendly to the world's leading financiers and have worked closely with them when it suits their purposes. As we shall see in the following section, the Bolshevik Revolution actually was financed by wealthy financiers in London and New York. Lenin and Trotsky were on the closest of terms with these moneyed interests, both before and after the revolution. Those hidden liaisons liaison They had a brief liaison to have a liaison with somebody. Those hidden liaisons have continued to these days and occasionally pop to the surface when we discover a David Ritchfield holding confidential meetings with Mikhail Gorbachev in the absence of government censorship or diplom- diplomatic 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 purpose, in the absence of government sponsorship, in the absence of or diplomatic purpose. 在没有政府赞助 in the absence of in the absence of up to the service continue to these days hadn't 勾结 hadn't liaisons liaisons liaison 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 A 下面两个点 father liaison part liaison. It is unreasonable to imagine a scenario in which the leaders of the communist bloc come to realize they cannot hold themselves in power much longer. It comes to a point where even physical forces is not enough, especially when the loyalties of those who hold the weapons also began to falter. With economic gangrene creeping up the legs of their socialist systems, they realize they must obtain outside financial assistance or perish. It is not unreasonable to imagine a scenario in which the leaders of communist bloc come to realize they cannot hold themselves in power much longer. There comes a point where even physical forces is not enough. 无济于事, especially when the loyalties of those who hold the weapon also began to falter. Who hold the weapons also began to falter. With Enoch Gungeons, with economic gungeons, gangrene, 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 gangrene 都行 gangrene, economic gangrene, clean up the legs of their socialist system. Clean up 开始加急 creeping up the legs of their socialism. They realized that they must obtain outside financial assistance or perish. Perish. They must obtain 紧紧抓住获取 financial assistance. Gangrene. In such scenario, quiet agreements can be worked out to mutual advantage of all negotiators. The plan could be as simple as a stage of laboratory play in a college football game. The appearance of doing one thing as a cover for accomplishing something else. Well, Americans are prepared to accept such deception on a football field. They could not believe that world financiers and politicians are capable of it. The concept is rejected out of hand as a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. 雕像 statue 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 啊 statue 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 of liberty statue of liberty play in a college game. In a college football game as cover for accomplishing something else. Nevertheless, 不仅如此 in this scenario, conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theory. Concept is rejected out of hand. 不假思索 out of hand. 直接不假思索 不假思索的 Nevertheless, in such a way, we theorize it is agreed among the negotiators that the sovereign bloc needs financial support. It is agreed that the Western nations have the capacity to provide it. provided provided it is agreed that the best way to move money from the industrialized nations into sub-black is through international agencies such as the IMF World Bank. It is agreed this can't happen until hostility 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 between world systems is replaced by political convergence. Host, host, hostility, hostility, hostility between world systems is replaced by political convergence. It is agreed that future conflict is a waste of is wasteful and dangerous to all parties. Therefore, it is finally agreed that the Soviet bloc must abandon its posture of global aggregation, while the West nations continue to move toward socialism. Necessary steps for the long-range goal of merger into a world government, but in doing so it must be ensured that the existing communist leaders retain control over their respective states. Communists become social democracy, Democrats， 注意在前面 Democrats。 Communists, Social Democrats. To that end, they changed their public identities to Social Democrats, Democrats. They speak out against the brutal excesses of their predecessors, 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 their predecessors, and they offer greater freedom of expression in the media. I feel dispensable. Individuals among their ranks are publicly purged as examples of the demise of the old order. States that once were held captive by the Soviet Union are allowed to break away and then return on a voluntary basis. If any leaders of the newly emancipated states prefer true independence instead of alignment with Russia, they are replaced. No other changes are required. Socialism remains the economic system of choice, and although lip service may be given to free market concepts, the economic and all means of production remain under state control. The old communists are now social democrats and, without exception, they become the leaders in the new system. The West rejoices and the money starts to move. As an extra bonus, the former Bolsheviki are now held by the world as great statesmen who put an end to the Cold War, brought freedom to their people, and helped to forge a new world order. Statesmen by the world as great statesmen. When did communists depart? We're not quite sure. All we know is that one day we opened our newspapers and it was accomplished. Social Democrats Social Democrats were everywhere. No one could find any communists. Russian leaders spoke as a long-time enemies of the old region. Perestroika was here. Communism was dead. It was not killed by an enemy. It voted itself out of existence. It committed suicide. Does it not seem strange that communism fell without a struggle? Is it not curious? It's not curious that the system which was born out of class conflict and revolution and which maintained itself by force and violence for almost a century just went away on its own. Communism was not overthrown by people rising up with clubs and pitchforks to throw off their yoke of tyranny. There was no revolution or counter-revolution. No longer a period of fragmentation. No blood surges between opposing forces. Pooh! It just happened. Oh, pooh! It just happened. True. There was blood in streets in those areas where opposing, opposing, opposing groups vied for power. Vied for power, but that was after communism had departed, not before. Such an event had never occurred in history. Until then, it had been contrary to the way governments act, contrary, 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 having contrary to the way governments act, contrary to the very nature of power, which never surrenders without a life and death struggle. This indeed is a great curiosity which should cause people to think. Our premise，我们的假定 premise 前提 premise our premise is that the so-called demise of communism is a great deception, not awfully different from many of the others that are the focus of this volume. We see it as having been stage managed for the purpose outlined previously, the transition to world government. In our view, the scenario is the only one that makes sense in terms of today's geopolitical realities, and the only one consistent with the lessons of history. Consistent with the lessons of history. We realize, of course, that such a view runs contrary to popular opinion and conventional wisdom. Conventional 保守的 wisdom. For many, it is shocking just to hear it spelled out. It would not be possible to convince any one of its truths without extensive evidence. Certainly, such evidence abounds, but is not within the scope of this study. So now that we have stated it, we shall leave it behind merely as a clarification of the author's point of view, so the readers can step around it if he wishes. We realize, of course, that such a view runs contrary to popular opinion and communist wisdom. For many, it is shocking just to hear it spelled out. 从多数人来讲 it's shocking just to hear it spelled out. It would not be possible to convince anyone of its truth without extensive evidence. Certainly, such evidence around, but it is not within the scope of this study. So now that we have stated it, we shall leave it behind merely as a clarification of the author's point of view, so the reader can step around it if he wishes. 我们当然意识到这种观点与主流和传统观点背道而驰。We realize, of course, that such a view runs contrary to popular opinion and conventional wisdom. For many, it's shocking just to hear it spelled out. And it would be not possible to convince any of its truths without extensive evidence. 想要任何人相信其真实性几乎不大可能。Certainly, such evidence abounds, abound, abound. Rumors abound in something, but it's not within the scope of this study. So now we have studied it.作者立场的澄清，若读者愿意 step around it if he wishes. Merely as clarification, clarification, clar, 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 clarification, clarification, the author's point of view, so the readers can step around it if he wishes. Step around it if he wishes. Step around it. 自行忽略，自行 step around it. Step around it. step around it. 绕开，避而不谈。忽略。Around it, around it, step around it, step around it. Eastern Europe. Communists became social democrats. To the end, they changed their public identities to social democrats. They speak out against the brutal access of their procedures. Predecessors. They speak out against the processes of their predecessors, and they offer greater freedom of expression in the media. Against 公开 speak out against the brutal access of their predecessors, and they offer great freedom of expression in the media. Speak out against the brutal accessors, accessors, brutal accessors, their predecessors, and they offer greater freedom of expression. speak out at the brutal exercises. The brutal excesses of their predecessors. A few dispensable individuals among their ranks are publicly purged as examples of the mess of old order. A few dispensable among their ranks are publicly purged. Purge something from something. As example of the mess of the old order. As example of the mess of the old orders. States that once were held captive by Soviet Union are allowed to break away and then return on a voluntary basis. States that once were held captive by the Soviet Union are allowed to break away and then return on a voluntary basis. If any leaders of the newly emancipated states prefer true independence instead of alignment with Russia, they are replaced. No other changes are required. Socialism remains the economic system of choice, and although users may be given to concepts, the economy and all means of production remains under state control. The old communists are now social democrats, and without exception, they become the leaders in the new system. The West rejoices and the money starts to move. As an extra bonus, the former Bolsheviks are now held by the world as the great state who put an end. Okay, we will read this paragraph tomorrow. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you. I'm sorry. Oh, I think that's all for today. Thank you. Bye bye. See you tomorrow.